They laughed when she quietly emptied the trash, ignored her when she mopped beneath their chairs, but when they fired her without warning, without even looking her in the eye, they didn't realize who she was. By the time they saw the boardroom doors open, it was already too late. The lights buzzed low in the early morning haze. Empty cubicles, stretched in rows like sleeping sentinels. Rhea Thompson moved through them without sound. Her name tag, just Rhea, stitched in dull blue thread, barely caught the overhead glare. She wore no makeup, no jewelry, just thick-soled black shoes and a janitor's uniform faded from years of bleach. She liked these hours, no chatter, no questions, just the hum of building systems, and the rhythmic swing of her mop. The boardroom trash always had clues, crumpled lunch receipts from executive delivery orders, printed slide decks with performance metrics, half-empty mineral water bottles that cost more than her hourly rate. Rhea emptied each bin with care, pausing only when she spotted a photo left behind. Two men shaking hands over a car engine, the company's old logo in the background. One of them had been her husband. She didn't stare long, just folded the image gently, slid it into the side pocket of her bag, and moved on. By 6:30, the first wave of junior associates trickled in. Most didn't see her. Some nodded absently while tapping on their phones. One young man in khakis stepped over her mop cord without so much as a glance. She didn't mind. It was safer this way. Easier to notice the things they said when they thought no one important was nearby. "New VP's a shark," one whispered near the glass partition. "She fired 2 managers last week and didn't blink." Rhea kept her eyes on the streak she was buffing out of the lobby tile. She didn't flinch when she heard her name. "They're still using that old cleaning lady, right? Rhea, or something. Probably on auto-pay. I don't think HR even knows she's still on the books. Hope she doesn't die on site. Legal nightmare." She wrung out her mop slowly. Not angry. Just noting. People told on themselves when they thought they were safe. By 7:15 the floor was alive with keyboards and cappuccino foam. Rhea moved through the kitchen next, wiping counters no one thought twice about. In the hallway, a director brushed past her, papers flapping from his folder. One floated to the floor. Rhea bent to retrieve it, and caught the heading Confidential Ownership Stake Analysis, Q3 Audit. She glanced at the second line, Majority Holder, Thompson, Rhea M. 51%. No reaction. No pause. She folded it neatly, tapped it twice and placed it atop the rest. "You dropped this," she said softly. The man took it with a distracted nod and kept walking. Rhea didn't follow. She just turned, gripped the handle of her supply cart, and kept moving steady, invisible, and right where she needed to be. The elevator doors hissed open on floor 6, and Rhea stepped out with her cart. The hallway lights had just clicked on, still soft from the overnight dimmer cycle. She moved like she always did. Quiet, deliberate, eyes low. The kind of presence that offices forget. The kind they never really see. A group of junior analysts passed her in the corridor, half laughing, half whispering. She didn't look up, but she caught it anyway. "Bet she's been here since the Reagan administration. She smells like pine sol and broken dreams." One snorted, the sound too loud in the early morning stillness. The joke wasn't clever, but it was loud enough for someone else to hear. Rhea didn't pause, just kept wheeling her cart toward the kitchenette, like none of it mattered. She was invisible. That was the point. And when you're invisible, people don't censor themselves. Behind closed doors, behind cracked glass, meeting rooms, behind backs turned in assumed privacy, words floated, loose, dangerous, honest. She didn't ask for them. They arrived uninvited. "You know HR's gonna cover for him again. He's in golf league with Peterson. She told me to wear looser shirts. Said my neckline was a distraction. If Jenkins gets another bonus, I swear to God I'm jumping departments." Rhea moved through the building like a sponge, collecting, absorbing, not reacting. Her hands stayed busy, wiping down coffee rings, restocking paper towels, folding discarded cardigans over the backs of chairs without ever asking whose they were. One afternoon, as she emptied a bin outside conference room B, she caught the tail end of a conversation between 2 department heads. I don't care if it was her husband's company. He's gone. If she wants to mop floors, let her. Ria's hands didn't even pause over the plastic liner. She tied it shut with practiced calm and wheeled the bag away. It wasn't new. The whispers about her past. About the man she once built this company with. Most of the staff weren't around back then. The names had changed. The walls had been repainted, but memory lingered in corners no renovation could reach. She didn't correct anyone. Didn't announce her history. She preferred the silence. It gave her more space to observe, to see who flinched at confrontation, who smirked when no one was looking, who led with fear and who followed without question. And she kept a little notebook. Not for cleaning schedules. For names, incidents, pattern. Not written in full sentences. Just shorthand. Symbols, enough to jog memory later. She didn't need anyone to defend her. She wasn't looking for credit or apologies. She was here for something else. Something most of them hadn't earned yet. Truth, she knew, wasn't always in the paperwork. Sometimes it lived in the halls, in whispers. And Ria, she never missed a word. The crash was soft. Ceramic on tile, not glass. But the silence that followed made it louder somehow. Ria was down the hall when it happened, pushing her cart past the frosted glass of the executive lounge. She paused. No one came out. No one called for help, just a nervous shuffle of heels, and the faint hiss of someone whispering, "Just leave it." But Ria didn't leave it. She wheeled her cart quietly to the mess. A vase had tipped from a side table, one of those sleek, overpriced centerpieces that didn't hold water or flowers, just status. It lay cracked near the baseboard, shards fanned out like a forgotten apology. She knelt slowly, her gloves brushed across the tile as she gathered the pieces, careful not to scrape the floor. She swept in silence, tucked the remains into a lined disposal tray, and wiped the dust with 2 clean cloths. One dry, one damp. It took less than 5 minutes. No one spoke to her. No one even looked her way. By 10 hours in AM, her name was on a list. The HR coordinator found her near the supply closet, clipboard in hand, smile tight enough to snap. "Ria, hi. Quick note. We need you to avoid cleaning client-facing areas during core business hours." Ria raised her brows slightly. "The lounge. It's just that, well, you're not authorized to be near executive spaces, unless specifically directed. We don't want any, misunderstandings." She said it like a favor, like Ria had wandered too close to a museum exhibit, and breathed on the glass. "I was cleaning up a broken vase," Ria replied, voice calm. "Well, yes, but no one asked for that, did they?" Another smile, sharper this time. "Let's just be mindful, okay?" Ria nodded once, not in agreement, in confirmation. The line had been drawn. By noon, someone else had placed a new vase on the table. Same shape, different color, a quiet erasure. But Ria remembered who had walked out of the lounge with a flicker of panic in her eyes. She remembered the assistant who had tried to block the view from the hallway. And she remembered the director, who passed by as she cleaned eyes, straight ahead, pretending not to see the kneeling woman just feet away. No one said thank you. No one asked if she'd cut herself, but the reprimand arrived like clockwork. She didn't argue. She didn't need to. She just returned to her cart, marked something in her notebook, a small drawing of a cracked circle, and kept moving. It wasn't the broken vase that bothered her. It was how quickly they tried to pretend it never happened, and how fast they wanted her gone once it did. The sun was already dipping low when Ria finished wiping down the front glass doors. Fingerprints, always fingerprints. No matter how clean the place looked from outside, they told the real story: who rushed in, who didn't care, who pressed too hard. She was folding her rag neatly when 2 men from HR approached. Suits, one with a clipboard, the other holding a thin envelope like it might burn. "Ria Thompson?" the taller one asked, as if he didn't already know. She turned, calm. "Yeah, we're going to have to ask you to come with us." No reason, no greeting, just protocol dressed up as politeness. She followed without a word, pushing her cart one last time through the quiet lobby, where employees were already packing up for the weekend. Someone held the elevator door. No one met her eyes. In the HR office, a printed sheet waited on the desk. No conversation, no performance review, no accusations, just a form, pre-signed, terminating her role effective immediately. "We're streamlining contracts," the shorter one mumbled, eyes fixed on a spot above her head. "You'll be removed from payroll by Monday. There's no severance package. Ria read the form once, then again, no box checked for conduct. No note about complaints, no citation, just position concluded. No further action required. She reached into her pocket, pulled out her badge, and set it on the table. Face up, anything else? She asked, voice steady. The men shifted uncomfortably. We'll have someone escort you out. For, policy. She didn't nod, didn't object, just stood, gathered her cloth from her cart, folded it slowly, and placed it back on the shelf. A young security officer met her at the elevator. Couldn't have been more than 25. He opened the side door with a swipe, and held it wide as she stepped out into the fading orange light. The wind caught the hem of her work shirt. She didn't fix it. She walked to the curb with nothing but her keys in hand, left her cart behind, didn't look back. No tears, no raised voice, no questions, just the kind of quiet that unsettled those expecting noise. The door clanged shut behind her. That was it. No one from management came out. No one said goodbye, but someone watched from the second-floor window. Mara from accounting, eyes wide, hand frozen on her coffee cup. She'd seen it all, and she didn't understand, because Ria didn't look fired. She looked finished, and somehow, ready. What they took from her that day wasn't a job. It was an opportunity, but what they gave her, without meaning to, was the perfect reason to finally speak. The boardroom buzzed with early chatter, the low kind meant to sound important. Laptops opened, tablets clicked, coffee steamed in branded mugs that never left the conference suite. A tray of pastries sat untouched at the center of the table, too polite to eat, too stale to want. It was quarterly review day. 11 executives sat in high-backed chairs murmuring about projections and shareholder calls. One seat at the end of the table remained empty. No one questioned it. Sometimes a regional lead ran late, sometimes legal sent a proxy. The chair was just there, waiting. At 9:03 a.m., the double doors opened, and in walked Ria. Not in uniform. No gloves, no badge, no mop cart. Just a navy blue suit, tailored to perfection. White blouse crisp at the collar, hair pulled into a low, dignified knot. She carried a folder. Slim, precise, heavy in all the right ways. Conversations died mid-sentence. One man blinked as if he'd seen a ghost. Another, Michael Chan, VP of Strategy, tilted his head. "I'm sorry, ma'am. This is a closed executive session." "I know," Ria said calmly. She placed the folder on the table and opened it to the top page. Ria M. Thompson. Controlling owner, 51%. Silence. Someone at the far end actually laughed. Unsure if it was a joke. It wasn't. The legal officer leaned forward and scanned the page. His eyes moved fast. Slower, then froze. "I need to confirm this," he started. Ria nodded once. "You should. All the documents are in there. Transfer of majority stake from Marcus Thompson, dated 2 years before his passing. Acquired through succession and protected under the bylaws this board ratified in 2018. You signed it." She didn't raise her voice, didn't need to. The CEO, a silver-haired man, who had shaken hands with Marcus in press photos, but never once spoken to Ria in the hallway, cleared his throat. "We were never informed of this arrangement." "No," Ria said. "You weren't, because I wasn't ready." She walked slowly toward the open seat at the head of the table, and sat. Not with bravado, just clarity, like she belonged there, which she did. Someone shuffled papers. Another reached for coffee but missed the handle. Ria let the silence stretch just long enough. "I'm not here for vengeance," she said. "I'm here because I saw what this company became when no one thought I was watching. And now that you know who I am." She closed the folder. "We're going to talk about what comes next." No one interrupted her again, because that morning, the board didn't just learn her name. They remembered it. No one moved at first. Just the soft mechanical whir of the HVAC, and the faint buzz of someone's watch alarm going off on the hour. It was the CEO, Jonathan Bell, shifted in his chair like the leather had turned hot beneath him. He glanced at the folder, then at Ria, then back again. This must be some sort of misunderstanding. Ria didn't blink. "It's not." Michael Chan leaned forward. Respectfully, "Miss Thompson." "Miss," she corrected, calm. "Miss Thompson. These documents. I mean, if what you're saying is accurate, why wasn't the board notified when the shares transferred?" She opened the folder again. slow and deliberate. Page after page slid across the table, date signatures, certificates of transfer, Marcus Thompson's name, her own, notarized, witnessed, filed, buried, right where they left it. You were notified, she said, flipping to a memo stamped August 2019. You just didn't pay attention. A partner down the row, Harold Finch, grey beard, louder than necessary, spoke up. This is unprecedented. Controlling stake or not, decisions at this level require collaborative leadership. No one person just walks in and declares. Rie turned to him quietly. Do you know how many meetings I sat outside of, cleaning your fingerprints off the glass, while you misquoted my husband's founding principles? He said nothing. She looked back to the CEO. I didn't come in to swing a hammer. I came in because you made decisions that hurt people silently, repeatedly, and now, I'm simply reclaiming what was already mine. The legal officer, pale now, cleared his throat. She's right. The documents are solid. Her ownership stake exceeds 51%. The buyout was structured through Marcus's trust. There's no legal gap. Jonathan rubbed the bridge of his nose. So you've just been here, watching us? Yes, Rie said. And I saw enough. No one knew where to look. Laptop sat idle. Coffee cooled untouched. A woman in operations tried to make a note, but her hand shook too much to type. Rie let the stillness settle. I've listened to jokes about janitors, she said. I've watched you reward cruelty with promotions and silence with bonuses. I was never invisible. You just didn't bother to look close enough. The senior partner exhaled. So what now? Rie leaned back, folding her hands gently. Now we clean house. Not with brooms, with accountability. A pause. Then her voice dropped even softer. I know where every piece of dust lives in this building, and I'm not afraid of dirt. They had no response, just the hum of systems rebooting, and the unmistakable feeling that the storm hadn't started yet. But it was coming. And this time, the mop belonged to the one who owned the floor. Rie didn't raise her voice. She didn't have to. She sat in the chair at the head of the table, arms relaxed, folder closed, eyes steady. The same room where she'd once scrubbed coffee stains off the carpet after a budget meeting now waited for her words like oxygen. No one fidgeted, no one reached for a phone. There was only the soft tick of the clock above the window and the weight of being seen. I won't be repeating myself, Rie said quietly, so I suggest you listen the first time. A few glances flicked around the table. The legal officer had already stopped taking notes. Michael Chan sat stiff, hands folded, jaw tight. Jonathan Bell, the CEO, hadn't spoken in 5 minutes. Rie continued. Effective immediately, this board will begin a full audit, not just of numbers but of culture. I want evaluations of management conduct, employee turnover, promotion pathways, and every HR file marked confidential. No redactions. No filters. She slid a single sheet across the table, a list of departments. A list of names. These are the areas with the most noise. Complaints brushed aside. Grievances left unanswered. Exit interviews deleted before they were reviewed. I want everything reopened. Someone cleared their throat. Rie didn't look to see. You've been running this company on spreadsheets and silence, she said. But I've been here. Every week. In every hallway. I've seen who gets passed over, who gets punished for speaking up, and who gets protected, no matter what they do. She let the words settle. No more. Someone near the end of the table scribbled a note. Another just sat, eyes wide. I'm not asking for performative change, she added. This is not about installing a plaque or throwing a workshop with bagels. This is about the people who make this company run, who've been doing the work without respect, without credit, and often without safety. She paused. And if that makes anyone in this room uncomfortable, that's a sign, not a threat. Jonathan finally stood. You want to lead with dignity, I get that, but we have shareholders to satisfy. The markets can wait, Rie said. Calm, firm. The people can't. No one argued after that. Not because they agreed, but because something about her presence, the stillness in it, felt like a locked door clicking shut. She wasn't asking for power. She already had it, and she wasn't using it to punish. She was using it to repair. Slowly, systematically, from the inside out. She stood to leave, one hand resting on the chair that now belonged to her. You'll each receive a schedule of interviews, she said. Prepare honest answers. She walked to the door, stopped once. And don't worry, she added, almost an afterthought. I've cleaned tougher messes than this. Then she was gone, and for the first time in that room's long polished history, someone had finally meant what they said. The knock came at 8 and 4 a.m. Too early for pleasantries, too late to pretend you weren't at your desk. Gwen Latimer, Director of Human Resources, looked up from her screen. The calendar on her monitor showed an empty block. No meetings until noon. She frowned. Then the door opened. Rhea stepped in. No assistant, no warning, just present. The same face Gwen had seen dozens of times, at a distance, behind a cart, at the bottom of an organizational chart. She never bothered to scroll through. Good morning, Ms. Latimer, Rhea said evenly. Do you have 10 minutes? Gwen nodded too fast. Of course. Yes. Please. Rhea sat. She didn't cross her legs or remove her coat, just placed a slim folder on the edge of the desk, and opened it with care, like she was unsealing history. Inside papers, printouts, old memos, screenshots, every sheet neat, precise, cornered with a yellow tab, and a date. I want to walk you through a few things, she said. No accusations, just facts. Gwen swallowed hard. Okay. Rhea slid the first page forward. March 17. Terminated for insubordination after filing a complaint about a department head, who later received a performance bonus. Complaint was closed the same day it was filed by you. Next page. June 2, 2000. Kenneth Liu demoted after requesting parental leave, beyond the standard 2 weeks. You marked his review as lacking initiative shortly after. Another page. October 9, 2000. Deshaun Taylor, dismissed for a cultural misalignment, after raising concerns about discriminatory jokes in the design wing. No investigation. No follow-up. The stack kept growing. Every page was a moment someone thought would be forgotten. Rhea didn't raise her voice. She didn't accuse. She documented. Page after page. Gwen's fingers twitched toward her mouse, her keyboard, anything that might create a barrier between them. But nothing. These are just the cases I found on file, Rhea said. There are more. Off the books. Stories that never made it to ink. Gwen tried to speak. I wasn't the only one making decisions. Sometimes legal. This isn't about blame, Rhea said. It's about Pat. She closed the folder gently. People came to you for help, and instead of listening, you buried them in forms and phrases like not a cultural fit, or inappropriate tone. You sanitized silence, and called it structure. Gwen's hands were still now. Pale. Rhea leaned forward, voice soft. You signed my dismissal, Gwen. No reason given. No protocol followed. No warning. I didn't know, Gwen whispered. No, Rhea said. You didn't care to. She stood. This isn't about punishment, but moving forward, you won't be handling internal investigation. Effective immediately. That responsibility is being reassigned. I need people who see what's in front of them. She walked to the door, opened it, paused. Have a good day, Gwen. Then she left, calm, quiet, undeniable. And Gwen was alone with the one thing she never thought she'd face. Accountability, with a name and a memory. The emails went out just after 7 a.m. Subject lines were clinical. Administrative leave pending review. Names followed, 5 in total. Directors, VPs, 1 senior advisor. All of them used to making decisions, not receiving them. The wording was careful. Internal audit, temporary reassignment, non-punitive procedure. But everyone knew what it meant. By 8:30, the office was different. Phones still rang. Keyboards still clicked. But the noise had edges now. Conversations were quieter. Glances sharper. Desks that had once been command posts were suddenly empty. Plaques removed. Nameplates gone. And down the hallway came Rhea. No cart this time. No gloves. Just a soft charcoal blazer. A thin folder in her arm. And the kind of calm that made people sit up straighter when she passed. She wasn't there to intimidate. She was there to see, and they knew it. Some avoided her gaze. Eyes locked on monitors, fake phone calls in progress. Sudden fascinations with staplers. Others braver, maybe smarter, met her eyes. Not with fear, with acknowledgement. She nodded back. In the copy room, a junior analyst whispered, She's here into her coffee lid. Downstairs, a tech held the door open for her, with a nod like he'd known all along. He had. Most of the hourly staff had suspected weeks before the board ever did. Ria made notes in the margins of her mind. Who tensed? Who smiled? Who looked surprised to see her with nothing in her hands but authority? Mid-morning she stopped outside the break room. Inside, 2 employees sat in silence. One of them, Lana from compliance, looked up and offered a small wave. Ria stepped in. Mind if I sit? They both shook their heads. A beat passed. Then Lana said, feels different in here. Ria smiled faintly. That's the point. She asked about their roles. What worked? What didn't? What was ignored? They answered cautiously at first. Then more openly. By the end of it she had 3 action items, and 2 names to follow up on. Not for punishment, but for perspective. Later that day she visited the service corridor near the old storage rooms, where most executives never bothered to walk. A custodian there paused, startled, and said, "You don't have to come back here." Ria just smiled. Sure I did. Because cleaning house didn't end with suspension notices and corporate memos. It started there. But it continued in corners, in stairwells, in whispered truths, in the space between what people said and what they tolerated. She wasn't mopping anymore. She was watching, and now that the dirt was finally visible, there'd be no more sweeping it under the rug. The conference room was full, every chair taken, people lining the back wall, the air thick with the quiet tension of too many thoughts unspoken. No slideshow, no branding banner, just Ria, standing at the front, in a navy sweater and dark slacks, hands clasped loosely in front of her. She didn't stand behind the podium. She stood beside it. "I've been here longer than most of you," she said, "but not always like this." A few people shifted in their seat. "I started in accounting," she continued. "Back when the company was 3 floors and still used paper ledgers, I was hired for a temporary role, but I stayed. My husband, Marcus Thompson, was one of the original partners. Most of you know his name from the wall near the elevator. Fewer of you know we built this place together. We dreamed it up at our kitchen table. Silence. Not out of awkwardness, out of attention. When he passed," she said, pausing just enough. "I stepped back. I wasn't ready to lead, and I didn't want to be handed something out of pity. So I kept my shares, kept my head down, and watched. For years." Someone near the front leaned forward. "I came back last year," she said. "Not as a nameplate, not as an owner. Just Ria. No one asked me why. No one wondered what a woman in her 60s was doing mopping floors outside the finance wing. They assumed." She let that word hang. "They assumed I had nothing to offer, that I was small, replaceable." Background. A ripple moved through the crowd. Recognition. Discomfort. "I didn't come back to catch anyone," she said. "I came to understand, to see what had changed. Because something had shifted, and not just in leadership, in culture, in tone, in what people were afraid to say out loud." She turned slightly, glancing around the room, and I listened. Every hallway, every closed-door conversation, every paper no one thought I'd read when it hit the trash. A faint smile tugged at her mouth. "This isn't about revenge," she said. "I'm not here to punish anyone for forgetting who I was. I'm here to ask a better question. Who do we want to be?" No one answered, because for once, the room was truly listening. "I know what it's like to be overlooked," Ria said. "I know what it's like to grieve, and rebuild, and be treated like you're invisible. But I also know what it means to own something. Really own it. Not just on paper. In purpose." She stepped back, voice softening. "I didn't come back to be seen. I came back to see. And now, finally, they saw." The first thing to go was the corner office. The glass walls came down on a quiet Tuesday morning. No memo, no big announcement. Just a work crew in plain clothes. And Ria, standing nearby with her arms folded, watching as the panels were carefully lifted and rolled away. No one quite knew what to say. By lunch, the CEO's old suite was an open workspace with 3 shared desks, 2 plants, and a coffee station. No throne, no distance, just room to breathe. The next week, the locks came off internal doors that had never needed to be locked in the first place. HR left theirs open all day. Legal followed suit. Even Gwen Latimer, still shell-shocked but in place, sat in full view now. No tinted window, no opaque nameplate. A new bulletin board appeared in the main hallway titled, "We Hear You." Staff could leave anonymous notes, suggestions, concerns. Rhea read every single one. Every Friday, she posted a response in handwriting, never typed. It didn't stop there. Mandatory equity trainings replaced outdated compliance refreshers, not a slideshow with buzzwords, but facilitated conversations, real ones, led by people who'd actually lived through the issues. Employees were invited to speak. No one was forced to smile through it. A few resisted, quietly, predictably, but the tide had already turned, and then came the scholarship. It was announced via a single-page memo tucked into everyone's inbox. The Marcus Thompson Legacy Fund. A yearly scholarship for employees' children pursuing education in business, finance, or the arts. Full tuition. No strings. The company covered it. Rhea signed the check herself. People didn't clap. They didn't cry. They sat in stunned quiet, reading the memo twice. Because it was real. And because it came from someone who didn't need to prove a point anymore. But the biggest change was harder to see. Because it lived in the air. Respect became non-negotiable. Meetings started with eye contact. Assistants were asked their opinions. Techs were thanked by name. Interns were invited to speak without being spoken over. One morning, Lana from compliance laughed loudly. During a team huddle, no one winced, no one shushed her. And she didn't apologize. In the elevator, Rhea rode beside two junior analysts without a word. One of them finally said, "Ms. Thompson, can I ask how do you decide what to change?" She smiled gently. "I listen for what feels quietest. Then I ask why." By the end of the quarter, nothing looked revolutionary. The logo stayed the same. The parking lot was still cracked in places. But inside things were moving, not fast, but honest. And that was enough, because it wasn't just a new floor plan. It was the start of a foundation that no one could erase. The office had settled into a new rhythm. Quieter, but lighter. Meetings ended on time. People lingered in break rooms without checking over their shoulders. The old tension that used to live in doorways and silences had thinned, like dust finally swept from the corners. On a rainy Thursday afternoon, a new hire named Eli was setting up his badge at reception. Fresh out of grad school, nervous but eager. He'd heard whispers about the place, about how things had shifted, about the woman who didn't act like a CEO but was one. He hadn't seen her yet, until she walked by. No entourage, no announcement, just a soft coat, low heels, and a calm presence that made people pause without knowing why. Rhea. She paused near the entrance, scanning the floor like she always did, not checking, just seeing. Eli, unsure whether to speak, stepped forward. "Excuse me," he said. "Are you with operations?" Rhea smiled, not wide, just enough. Something like that. She didn't explain, didn't need to. She just nodded once and kept walking past the rows of desks, past the open break room, past the framed photo near the elevator of her and Marcus, shaking hands in front of the company's first office. Eli stood there a second longer, watching her. Later, he asked his team lead, "Who was that?" The lead didn't hesitate. "That's Rhea Thompson, the founder's wife." "His partner," the lead corrected gently. "And the reason this place still works. There was a time just months ago when Rhea walked the halls unseen. Her footsteps were background noise, her name forgotten. But now, they remembered, because the woman who once carried a mop didn't come to be noticed. She came to notice. And when she saw what was broken, she didn't rage. She listened. She waited until the right moment, then stepped forward, not to punish, but to restore. Now, when she walked the building, people didn't scramble. They looked up, said hello. Some nodded with quiet thanks. Others just smiled and went back to their work, knowing someone finally cared enough to look beneath the surface. And Rhea, she still kept her notebook, still paid attention to the spaces between meetings, the glances exchanged in passing, the stories told in body language, and quiet resignation. But now, the building spoke back, honestly, openly, because respect had taken root, not from fear, not from a title, but from the simple power of a woman who knew exactly who she was, and never needed to prove it. She didn't build an empire, She cleaned it out and left something better behind. If this story moved you, if you believe dignity shouldn't depend on a title, and that real leadership listens before it speaks, then share Ria's journey. Leave a comment below about a time you felt overlooked, or someone surprised you with quiet strength. Let's remind the world, real change doesn't shout, it shows up, pays attention, and never forgets. Hit like, subscribe, and pass this story on, because someone out there needs to know. Being unseen doesn't mean you're powerless.